You're now watching a clip from the Inspired by show. You can watch the full episode on our YouTube channel or listen on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to head over there, leave us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it, and follow the show. As a parent, how did you feel when you started seeing the autism signs?
I feel like at the beginning, I was kind of clinging on to, no, he was fine. He was fine. And then to the point, it was actually became sort of depressing. So it was really quite depressing and really like if at one point you kind of feel hopeless, but you can't lose hope because it's your child. Without, yeah. So I think when anyone's a parent, you have so many dreams for your child, and then to have to put limitations on them, it's just you can't do it easily. You can't accept that easily. So tired. Let's just maybe cut this out.
Don't worry, take your time, lovely. It's a great answer.
Okay. But I think it's really, really hard to accept that your child's going to have a difficult life. And you're right, being a driven person, as a parent, you have so many dreams for your child. I'd rather not live my whole life seeing my son struggle. So I thought, okay, there's a window of time to do something about this now. So then I just made the most of it.
Wow. And also, you did the best for him because he's at the age, 2 years old. He doesn't know any different.
Yes.
He's trusting you, relying on you as a parent. And I'm currently pregnant, and I can only imagine what it was like when you had that experience. I mean, I'm going through it even now, being the person carrying the baby, thinking, am I eating the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Like, what if they end up this? Is that my fault? And so I can only imagine when you start seeing signs, and then people who are the experts are sort of going, I'll just accept with that. Like, decrease your expectations.
I really could not accept that. Wow. I think that for me, it's harder to do nothing than to do something, because then at least you have the realization in your mind that you tried everything. So that's what I'd rather have that rather than a regret. Oh, I should have done this. I should have done that.
Wow. So that's incredible. So you managed it with your own son. So how did you then go from doing it for your own son to then thinking, actually, this is something I want to learn more about, write a book about, build a business about?
Okay. So I started off being like the community expert in autism. So a lot of people had seen the transformation my son had made. And it's a little bit impressive that your son has autism, and now he's not anxious everywhere. He's thriving, he's talking, he's making fast progress. So I sort of became like the go-to expert in my friendship circles around autism. And a lot of people would send me videos of their child doing this, ask me for advice. And then I realized that a lot of people don't seem to have this knowledge, and that there was a real demand for it. And I just find, because I learned so much so quickly, I was surprised when people had older autistic children and they didn't know certain things, which I felt was so obvious. So then I thought there's a big demand here, and then I thought I should do something formal about it. And that's why I decided to write a book called Unlock Autism, and that describes my 7-step autism action plan. And that's been received really, really nicely actually by so many people. And now the information is out there, because a lot of people don't even know what causes autism. We're told that it's genetic, but really it's actually epigenetic. Which I can explain, which is that just because you have the genes for something doesn't mean you're necessarily going to express it. So genes can be switched on and off depending on your environment. For example, you might have a gene for obesity, but if you're always eating healthy food, if you're in a food poverty environment, your gene for obesity will never be expressed. So it's literally like genes load the gun, but your actions and your environment pulls the trigger. So autism is like that. It's epigenetic. And I feel like with a lot of parents who I've spoken to, especially the ones who had the rapid loss in skills and had that skills regression, they find it very hard to accept that it's genetic, because they say, my child wasn't born like this. So he wasn't like this. I've got videos of him like this. And they're really desperate to show people the videos that he or she was born normally and had eye contact and was saying words. But there really isn't much help out there, which is why I started this business to formally help parents now.
Wow. And I remember when we first started working on your book and I was reading the first manuscript, and one of the things that I can openly say, Taiba, I hope you don't mind me saying, but you were so humble and unaware of how valuable what you were sharing was. And I remember reading it and I was like, obviously wasn't pregnant at the time and definitely didn't think I'd be having kids soon. And it was like, I was reading it and I was thinking, God, there's so much knowledge in here that you'd picked up. And I think a lot of us undervalue our knowledge until we start
Yeah.
seeing the impact it has on other people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And one of the things that I really value about your honesty is, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, is that you don't believe that autism is something that you can eliminate. It's not something you want people to be embarrassed about,
No.
right? So tell me a bit about your thoughts and how your approach is different.
Yeah, sure. So I think some people, like when I initially talk about you can change a person's autism symptoms so that they can become verbal, they can, stop stimming or decrease stimming, that, their anxiety can go away, it can disappear. People will I get a very common criticism is all I'm trying to do is encourage children to mask. But so masking is where a child or a person with autism will just mimic neurotypical actions and behaviors, but then usually when they get home they have a meltdown because they've had a really difficult day because they're not being themselves. So they'll have that meltdown at home. But I help parents. So parents, we see the whole picture of our child. Usually children who mask, parents are telling the teachers and the doctors that no, there's a problem, and the teachers and doctors don't believe them because they seem fine at school, but they don't believe that they're masking. But again, I help parents so they can see the full picture. And also I feel like some therapies like ABA therapy, do you know what ABA? It's like a behavioral therapy. It's very common in the US. We don't really have it in the UK. You can do it privately, but it's not available on the NHS here. So ABA therapy teaches autistic children how to do certain behaviors with like a reward. So it's okay. It's for some children, it's very effective. Like in America, there's loads of children and loads of parents will be so happy about ABA because their child's potty trained because of it, and all the other skills that they've learned through ABA. But it's very similar to how you would train a pet. So like there's like a reward there. And if you were going to like teach your child, like if you were going to teach like your dog to be potty trained and not to go inside but only outside, and then you'd reward that behavior, that's very similar to ABA. Like it's positive rewards to teach a certain behavior. So that therapy encourages masking because you're teaching new behaviors like that. Yeah. But my whole approach is healing children from the inside. Yeah. So they naturally stop doing certain behaviors. They naturally become more verbal. It doesn't encourage masking at all.
Yeah, I remember that when we were working on your book, because I think a lot of people try and fix the symptom, not the cause.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one of the things I find fascinating is that parents don't realize half the stuff that are causing it, stuff all around us. I mean, I read your book and I was like, this was mind-blowing to think of how you can prevent autism and now actually, for people who have it, how to handle it.